What's up guys, today we're going to be going over a major problem Destiny 2 is starting to face, and that's going to be revolving around their exotic armor pieces and how it's becoming progressively more and more impossible to actually farm for what you want and not only get the exotic armor piece you want, but it with a good roll. And this all boils down to just how many exotic armor pieces there are per character. There's 37 for both Titan and Hunter and 36 on Warlock right now, and every season they just get one more. Then in DLCs they usually get a few, so year over year they're usually getting 5 or even 6 more exotic armor pieces. And for me, over the past year with the 3.0 subclasses, I've been playing more and more of all 3 characters. So while I have all the pieces for both Hunter and Titan, I usually just have the collection roll and have to pull it from the collections. So now with the builds I'm making and the ones I'm using like kind of full time, I'm trying to go farm a higher stat piece for that build. And even on Warlock, with resilience being so important now, all my old pieces were for the most part Recov discipline based. So even those, I'm trying to refarm new ones with better resilience. So we look at the 2 ways you're going to actually go about farming these exotics in Destiny 2. The first one is on the Nightfalls. And the way you get exotics from Nightfalls is the higher the tier of the Nightfall, the higher chance you will get one upon completion. Also, it takes into account platinum versus gold and things like that. Obviously, you want to be doing plat runs. And even on like the master and GM level, you're definitely not guaranteed to even get one per run. And even when you do get one, it can be one of all 37 pieces per character. It's like not restricted at all. So if you're looking for, let's say, a specific armor piece, a 1 in 37 on a not even guaranteed per run basis is going to be next to impossible to even get what you want. Then when you do, it's not even guaranteed to be a good roll at all. And not to mention, the only efficient farm from Nightfalls is GMs, which are only around for the second half of the season, and most players don't even interact with GMs. Also, depending on the season, there might not even be one worth farming. So overall farming for the exotic you want from a Nightfall is borderline impossible. Even when this system first came out with the GMs, masters, and things like that, you know, this system wasn't like the most efficient farm ever. But over time, you know, we've added, what, 15 more exotics since then, so it just progressively gets worse and worse each season. And without an update to drop rates or the system as a whole, it's just going to be progressively harder and harder. So instead, we could go for the second way to farm exotics in Destiny 2, which will be solo legend lost sectors, which you might think will be easier because you'll narrow it down to different categories, so helmet, arms, chest, or boots. But I played a lot of these this season, mostly on Titan for the Heart of Inmost Light on chest day, and I've estimated I've done roughly 350 runs this season, mostly in just the last 2 chest days. And in those 350 runs, I got one Heart of Inmost Light, and it's this one you see on screen right now. It may as well just be the collection roll. And throughout those 350 runs, I was getting one drop roughly every 10 runs. And most of my runs were on the lost sector that took me roughly a minute to complete. Adding in loading time, the full loop was roughly 2 minutes. So I was doing about 25 to 30 runs an hour. So I was averaging maybe 2.5 to 3 exotics per hour. And there are 8 exotic chest pieces on Titan. So over those 350 runs, you would expect about 3 or 4 of each exotic. So admittedly, my one drop was probably low variance, but it can still obviously happen in the real world as it did in my case. And chest pieces on Titans aren't even that bad. There's only 8. If you look at exotic gloves on Titan, there's 13. So that would be even lower odds. And most categories have at least 8 of their exotics. So helmet, arms, chest, or boots. There's usually at least 8 for each character. And the most is definitely Titan gloves with 13. I've been farming for the Heart of Inmost Light for over 15 hours of doing straight runs and still have only gotten the one. And just like the Nightfall, every season this just gets progressively worse and worse and more impossible to actually farm for what you want. And unlike armor focusing from not this season but the 2 seasons before that, it's not even like guaranteed to be a good roll. Usually the stat amount is relatively high, like the lowest I've seen is like a 63, 64-ish, but it's not guaranteed to be like good stat distribution, kind of like the armor focusing. So after you play for, you know, 10 plus hours to even get the drop you want, there's a good chance it'll just be a pretty bad roll anyways. So I think you get my point, either through the Nightfall or even Legend Lost sectors. I mean, the chance of getting exactly the armor piece you want with a good roll is almost next to zero at this point, and it's just like keep getting worse and worse with no changes to the system. And I think that is a very bad thing. I think once you have the exotic armor piece unlocked, farming for a good roll should be pretty accessible. So what could a change be? Well, I made an idea several years ago for Xur that I think kind of applies to both Nightfalls and the Solo Legend Lost sectors. And that would be Xur, or really any vendor selling a exotic armor blueprint. That would be like a mini quest line that could take you through steps in the Nightfall, the Solo Legend Lost sectors, and at the end it would give you, you know, the exact armor piece you want. And depending on how long Bungie would think this quest line would need to be to like make it balanced, it could require multiple Nightfall completions, multiple Solo Lost sectors, and even to purchase it, it could cost like, you know, exotic upgrade materials, or they could even limit it to like 1, 2, or even 3 per character per week. That way you just couldn't endlessly farm these things and just get everything you want like in 1 week. So let's say the full loop would be you go to Xur and buy one of the exotic blueprints, and let's say it costs a Ascendant Shard to buy it. Let's say step 1 is Nightfall completions. GMs give 50%, Masters give 30%, so on and so on, all the way down the list. And then step 2 could be do X amount of Solo Legend Lost sectors, depending on how long they think this should take. Let's say 10, maybe even 20. And at the end of all that, you get the exotic armor piece you want, preferably with, you know, at least decent rolls. And that would make it so as you're doing Nightfalls, as you're doing Solo Legend Lost sectors, with X amount of time, you're guaranteed to get at least one of the thing you're actually looking for. And like I said, they could limit this to like 1 per character per week. And I know for a fact if this was a system in the game, I would definitely be doing my 1 per week per character, at least getting my 1 guaranteed thing I want per week. So yeah, it just seems like getting exotic armor pieces right now is near impossible. It's almost borderline not even worth trying to get stuff from Nightfalls anymore, just because of how many exotic armor pieces there are, and your chance of getting what you want is very low. And from my personal experience, Solo Legend Lost sectors isn't that much better, and that is coming from someone who has the amount of time to spend 8 hours a day when it's a good rotation. And even doing that, I still haven't gotten a remotely good Heart of Endless Light. So for the average player that can only play a limited amount of hours per week, most of our hours will go towards, you know, doing the weekly content or doing raids or whatever. So throughout the season, they have almost no chance of farming what they want. So for them, it probably feels near impossible to even remotely think about trying to get what they want. So yeah, whether you think my proposed system would be a good implement to the game or not, there's no denying that this problem is just getting progressively worse and worse, and it definitely needs some type of change. And once again, this is all about repeat farming the exotics and not actually getting them in the first place. I do think the acquiring of the exotic in the first place should still be kind of a chase, but once you have it, there should be a way to realistically farm for the role you want. Because right now, it's pretty much just the first role you get, that's gonna be your role forever, unless you want to sink in like 30-40 hours into trying to farm a second one. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Like usual, let me know what you think about this topic down below. Thanks for watching, catch you guys next time.